Hey there, and welcome to this episode of Mike Reviews Military Stuff. I am your host, obviously, Mike B, and today I'm going to be giving my opinion and ranking one of the most iconic and cool pieces you can possibly get in military collecting. The 1916, or in these cases, the 1917 German Stahlhelm. So these are both original pieces. This one's restored. This one's an original, about as mint condition paint job as you're going to get from the factory shell. Liner's a little bit worn, but this thing wasn't worn that long. This is one of my holy grails of helmet collecting, would be something like this. These are almost impossible to find in this condition. This one originally was brought back by a soldier, a U.S. soldier in World War I, and then really quickly put into a museum. So it is in basically the same kind of shape that it was when it came back to the United States after not being worn that long. So I'm just bragging about that a little bit. I'll make a more detailed version of this video in a bit, but for now, we're going to be using this as an example. So we'll just go with a little bit of brief history and context, who used this, when it was used, all that stuff. So obviously Germany came out with this design in 1916. It was copied by the Austrians, and German helmets were actually sent to Austro-Hungarians. And then, later on, this was used by Germany again in the Second World War in more of a reserve capacity. So from 1916 basically to 1945 is when these were used. These were issued to early SS soldiers in the 30s, and then they were also issued to rear echelon German troops, and some frontline units had them. Like in Italy, there were a lot of these that were found on frontline troops that were brought back by Allied soldiers as souvenirs. So also another major use, besides being pretty much used in every little part of the world in all these little armed conflicts you find in Africa and the Middle East and Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia. This thing's literally found everywhere in the world, but one of the biggest uses outside of Germany that's well documented was the use in the winter continuation wars in Finland in 1939 through 1945. The Germans sent thousands of their excess surplus World War I Stahlhelms to Finland as aid, and you can see the Finns wearing these very, very commonly and frequently in the winter and continuation wars. And then they actually refurbished these after the Second World War and used them through the 60s in limited capacity for their their regular military and some reserve units and civil guard units and all that stuff. So that's got a long service life in the world. And these are still popping up in Afghanistan and stuff. I've seen guys that get them. They pop up everywhere. The Middle East, you name it. Africa. So we'll start with the ranking system now, and then we'll just kind of do this. Now, I have to say this in every video because there's some people that take things way too seriously. This is all my opinion. Let's take it with a grain of salt. This is not a stone cold fact. This is just kind of something. I got asked to, what I think about a lot of military items, and I decided to make a video on what I think about a lot of things. I could just say, hey, check out the series. Anyway, so the first ranking we're going to go with is the aesthetic factor. Now, do I really need to go into detail on this? Look at this. This thing is the OG of most military combat helmets that we see today. This is the one that sparked it and influenced the design and the concept of having a lot of protection for the modern combat soldier with modern technology and all that stuff. Aesthetically, it just looks badass. I don't know another phrase to use. It doesn't look elegant or anything. It just looks badass. It looks intimidating. It's big. It looks neat. It looks very effective, and then you've got these iconic horns, the lug for the Stirnpanzer brow plate that goes there. That was an extra armor plate for sentries and stuff. That's iconic. Just the overall shape and the visor and everything is just badass, and I like these better than the World War II Stahlhelms just because these are the OG. So I'm going to actually give this, for aesthetic factor, a 9.5 out of 10. Because like most combat helmets, it's ugly in its own respect too, so it gets a half a point taken off. However, 9.5 out of 10 for aesthetics is pretty good. So, practicality and usefulness. Because this is a collectible item now, it's not really used by a lot of forces in the world currently. What I'm going to do is we're going to rate the practicality and usefulness for that time period from 1916 through 1945. And what we're going to find is that compared to other helmets like the Adrian helmet and the Brodie helmet, the practicality and usefulness of the Stahlhelm is a lot higher than those because it covers more of the head. It's built out of a thicker steel than I believe the Brodie helmet. It might be a little bit. I know it's a different kind. It's hot rolled, hot pressed steel versus cold rolled, cold pressed that the Brodie helmet was made out of. So that makes a difference in the strength and the properties of the steel itself. Now, Practicality, because of the amount of coverage, the weight, I don't know, just the fact that most modern helmets are designed off of this concept. We're going to give this, for practicality and usefulness, back in the day, an 8 out of 10. Now, the reason it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 is because there were some issues with it, such as it being very hard to hear people yelling when there's a bunch of noise going on. Because it covers, I mean, you can see it goes almost down to the bottom of your ear. So it was really hard to communicate. And on the contrary, if you're shooting a rifle or if an artillery round goes off next to you, that sound goes up in here and reverberates back and forth and kind of gets trapped in there. It doesn't have any place to escape. So people were complaining about that and the lack of being able to use communication devices. So there are some drawbacks to the design. Overall, though, for its time, this gets a solid 8 out of 10. So the next one is going to be quality/durability. Well, Germans and other countries, but Germany specifically, is never, they usually don't skimp on quality. Their stuff is extremely high quality. It's well made. The amount of craftsmanship that actually went into a mass-produced item is impressive, with the quality of the roll on the edge and the placement of the vents and you name it, the rivets. And obviously this is 100 years old. Or no, this is 100 and probably 4 or 5 years old. I mean, I got lucky on the example. It's got the mint condition, almost factory paint. The liner is a little bit worn, and it's a size 66 that fits my fat melon, even though I'm not planning on wearing this. But yeah, you can see 104 years later, it looks almost like the day it was made. So the paint, I'll go into a separate video eventually about the detail of the paint and stuff, about why it's so durable. But the shells themselves, some of them that I've seen that have been sitting in an attic or a humid spot for 100 years, have some pitting on them, but that's to be expected for any kind of steel. But the quality itself, mixed with the durability, this is also going to get an 8 out of 10. So that's a pretty good score. Comfort. So this one is not going to be as high as you probably think it will be, but we'll get to that. So like I just showed you, it's a 3-pad system, which is pretty comfortable in itself, but the problem is, it doesn't matter how well you have the chin strap secured to your face, it slides back and forth. It wobbles. This thing wobbles no matter how much you try to secure it with the gauze pads and, take one out and move it around. Unless you've got it sitting all the way down and compressed against your head, which isn't really comfortable, it's going to move around quite a bit, especially when you're running and stuff. And also, if you have that Stirnpanzer on there, it adds a lot of weight and it continuously falls down. So it wasn't made for troops on the run. It was made for sentries and people that were sitting in a stationary area that needed more armor, were susceptible to sniper fire. Some stormtroopers did use the Stirnpanzer, and it was really awkward and cumbersome. So they just chose to roll with regular helmets without the extra armor because they were mobile. So that kind of takes away from the comfort. The other thing that you might not think about is the chin strap lugs, the posts, are secured. Yeah, you can probably see this side better. By those little posts, and you see those little pointy things on the posts, little triangle things. That came from the 1895 Pickelhaube design, and it actually helps keep the chin strap from falling off the post. Well, what that does, unfortunately, is I've actually had this happen when I used to reenact World War I, is we were doing a hands-on scenario with people that we were comfortable with, and we knew, don't just go hands-on with people at reenactments. It was a choreographed and rehearsed battle scene. Anyway, myself and another reenactor, I was doing US, he was doing World War I German, he was wearing a Stahlhelm. We got into a hand-to-hand fight, and we fell to the ground. And what happened was, when he came up and attacked me, he speared me with his helmet, and he didn't realize that post was going to go right through his ear. So he got a nice, I don't remember if it went through, but it was a really big cut on his ear. So as we're rolling around, I see a bunch of blood on his face, and I'm thinking I didn't do it because there was people watching, and we were, trying to put on a show, but I'm like, what happened, And he kind of looked at it too, and he could see there was blood on me and stuff. But we just kept going. Anyway, long story short, that post went through his ear. Now, if you're trying to sleep on that or something, or you get hit with something or you fall down, that's going to be a thing that is uncomfortable. So that's going to take away from the comfort level. As far as just sitting on your head all day, if you're not moving and stuff a lot, it's not terrible. It's ventilated, all that stuff. So this is going to get a 6 out of 10 because of the drawbacks of the wobbliness, the chin strap posts and all that stuff. And it's also fairly heavy considering the other ones at the time, like the Brody helmet and the Adrian helmet, were not as heavy. So 6 out of 10, that's not the worst thing in the world. Again, I'm very picky when it comes to helmet comfort, so it's going to be hard. If it's around 5, it's an okay design. Anyway, originality of the design. So this wasn't a totally original design. It was influenced by medieval helmets, the Salé helmet and there's one other one. I can never remember this. Anyway, it's not just a ripoff, but it was directly influenced, just like the Adrian and the Brody helmet, from medieval designs, medieval armor designs, and made into a modern combat design. That being said, it is a very original design because this was this is the original gangster, basically, of every modern combat helmet, or 90% of them. So because of that originality of design and just the intricate stuff like the posts/vents and the way the chin strap is, which also wasn't really original, that was taken from the 1895 Pickelhaube, but the liner system and all that stuff, it was a very original design. And again, it was one of the most iconic. So this one's going to get an 8 out of 10 because it was influenced by other designs. It wasn't this totally radical thing. However, it was very original because they adapted that into a modern combat, more compact setting and more lightweight. So, and more able to be mass produced because mass production wasn't a thing back then. Everything was handmade. So how do you mass produce a work of art? Well, leave that to the Germans. So originality of design definitely is 8 out of 10. So, modern cost. I'm going to go, we're not going to be using the practicality kind of cost of this, for shit at the fan or whatever you think you're going to use a helmet for. For this particular military item, we're going to be talking about the collector's cost of this and the appeal to new collectors or, pre-existing collectors. Sorry, I got a itchy little hair in my nose. I'm going to rip it out after the video, mark my words, but it's just kind of itching and bothering. Anyway, so the modern cost for collectors, if you get a refurbished helmet, like this is a size 66, size, condition, and originality do factor in just like any military collectible. This is a size 66, it's restored by myself, and it's got a really nice reproduction liner in it. This is going to run, because of the size and all that stuff, about $350 to $400, depending on who, buy it and all that stuff. So that's not terrible, but for something that's not completely original, it is restored, that's a really expensive piece. That's just like a World War II German helmet, okay? Now, if you're looking at something that is all original like this, like most of the time you're not going to find the original chin straps, liners, much less all these together with a really nice paint job. That being said, this is probably worth at least $1,000, probably more. I didn't pay that for it. I actually got a pretty good, what I think is a good deal on it. And all my helmet collector friends said it was good too. I paid $700 for it. But these are going to be, $1,000 is an expensive piece to buy unless you're really serious about what you like. And I'm really serious about helmets. I love helmets. It's my main thing. And then, military surplus firearms is obviously second. But helmets is my favorite thing. So with the cost, though, it's very prohibitive for a new collector to just go out and get one of these. You have to have some deep pockets to really get into that. And again, dropping $700 to $1,000 for one helmet that you can't really even use in a modern setting effectively, you need to really be into collecting. So I'm going to give this actually a 4 out of 10 for cost because they are so high. World War II helmets are even worse, but we'll save that for some other videos in this series. Anyway, we'll just we'll wrap that up with that modern cost. It's not really a big deal. It's really, if you want one, they're around, which is a good thing, but they are expensive. So here's the final rankings, and we'll wrap the video up. If you did enjoy this video and you're enjoying this series so far, like it seems you guys are in the comments, consider supporting the channel financially via Patreon or becoming a channel member. Now, the reason I say this is a couple of reasons. One, I'd rather just be a crowd and self-funded channel and not have to do the corporate sponsorship things to do what I want. So far, it's working pretty well. I was able to get some cool stuff like this with the help of crowdfunding and whatever, and we're doing ballistic tests again this year. I haven't ballistic tested one of these yet, but thanks to Patreon supporters and channel members and people that buy merch on my Teespring, which is also another way you can support my work in the description. Because of the support from crowdfunding, we've got some really cool stuff lined up for as far as ballistic tests and other really cool content this year. So thank you so much. If you like this stuff, consider doing that. If you can't support the channel financially, I totally get that. You can just support me the usual ways that, just every video that you see, just hit that like button. It does matter in the algorithm. Comment if you want. And share this video out. That actually, subscribe as well. Share the video out. That's the best way to kind of get this out there. If you thought this was interesting or somebody can learn something or you can start a cool conversation or maybe get somebody into the hobby to preserve it, go ahead and share the video out. So anyway, those are all ways you can support the channel. I really do appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you think. I will be making probably several videos on this beauty right here. Again, Holy Grail. So glad to have it. Thank you for watching, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode of Mike Reviews Military Stuff.